Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Michelle McCarthy. Michelle is a Global Vice President of Customer Experience at Unit 4. In her role, Michelle leads a talented team of professionals responsible for ensuring the maximum adoption of and customer satisfaction with Unit 4's offerings and is accountable for leading the transformation of Unit 4's customer experience strategy that enables the customer success evolution. Michelle earned her BS in marketing from Miami University in Ohio and her Executive MBA in global management from Fordham University in New York. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this conversation with Michelle. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Yannick.
All right, Michelle. So we always give our guests an opportunity to share a little bit about their journey. So if you could take a few minutes to kind of just share with our audience a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. I started off my career in kind of more of the traditional marketing B2C and B2B type roles on the client side. And, started in the advertising agency space, worked for a number of different retailers and brands, and eventually had kind of rounded out my experience and wanted to move into more of the tech side of things. I had some opportunities to go and work on the SaaS side of the business for a company called Vibes, which is a mobile marketing technology company. And, through that experience and kind of rounding out my mobile marketing experience, I was able to kind of continue my career path then into other SaaS organizations. And so find myself, here today at Unit 4. I'm very excited to be talking with you.
All right. So Unit 4, could you share with our audience a little bit about what Unit 4 is? What do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. Unit 4 is a cloud leader really in the enterprise software space for mid-market, people-centered organizations. And so our solutions span everything from enterprise resource planning to financial planning and analysis tools, as well as procurement, project management for professional services organizations, and so forth, as well as human capital management. So our solutions really bring together all those various capabilities around financials, procurement, project management, HR, into one unified cloud platform through our ERPX solution. So that's a little bit about Unit 4.
Mm-hmm. Quite a mouthful. All right. So at Unit 4, a big part of what you focus on, we kind of alluded to it a bit before we started the official recording, were, how is it that you are able to improve CX by embracing customer centricity as a core value? And of course, there are some KPIs that you need to measure. So that's your area of expertise. So could you share a little bit about that with our audience?
Absolutely. I really believe that organizations need to always be looking how they stand out from the crowd, right? In order to do that, we have to find better ways to address customer needs and make sure that we're providing value and attainable outcomes. We need business experience that extends past traditional customer touch points and make sure that we're always looking at ways that we can influence product innovation. We need to look at the employee experience, right? Because employee experience really translates to that of the customer experience. And we need to make sure that that also aligns with our customers' organizations, their purpose and their values. So one of the first steps in improving customer experience is really looking for a top-down buy-in across customer centricity and putting that at the heart of everything that you do in your business. So whatever role you serve in the organization, that some way touches the end customer, right? And so customer companies need to really be making sure that they're measuring customer-centric KPIs in order to determine, how are we doing and how are our customers feeling about us. So we always want to look at how well we're looking at gaining new customers into the business. How are we growing the existing base of customers that we have? And how are we ultimately retaining the customers that we have to make sure that they're becoming long-term champions of our business through the success that they've achieved together in partnership with us. I guess to kind of delve a little bit more unique into some of the KPIs, a couple of the things that we might look at are things like Net Promoter Score. So looking at that kind of scale of 0 to 10 on how likely a customer is to recommend your company to a peer or colleague, looking at things like customer satisfaction scores and making sure that those are kind of sprinkled all throughout the key listening posts of our customers. So wherever they are engaging with us, whether that's post sales or that's post implementation, or that's post a business review that we've had with them, we want to make sure that we're always facilitating and asking for their feedback and making sure that we are taking that, capturing that feedback, and looping back to set proper expectations with customers.
Okay. So I'm glad you talked about KPIs in terms of like the NPS and the customer satisfaction score. A lot of organizations also invest millions of dollars, sometimes even billions, into market research, particularly like mystery shopping. And the mystery shopping sometimes will capture the NPS. What are your views on, like the frequency of doing these types of activities? And do you think it's critical to be doing it post-transactional, or should it be more so a conversation that you have with the client, maybe at the end of every quarter? Like, what are some of your best practices that you'd recommend to clients?
Yeah, I think frequency and cadence is definitely key. I think, depending on the types of engagements, you want to make sure that they're throughout the customer's journey at the appropriate time. So if you have a new customer that's joined, one of the things I mentioned is, post sale, right? You have a customer that's gone through potentially a lengthy sales process with you. How did they find working across the organization? That's a great time for you to kind of see how the beginning part of their journey into implementation will go. Then you may also want to survey a customer as they're coming out of an implementation with you. So after they've worked with the project management teams and met their CSM, how is that work stream going? It's also key, you mentioned business reviews, right? We may do quarterly business reviews with some of our customers. And so making sure to take stock coming out of those meetings, what was the expectation? Did they see, hear, feel everything that they were expecting to? And so I think it's a real combination of both the quantitative surveys, but also those qualitative conversations to probe a bit deeper, where you may not have the opportunity in just a quick, plug in one question or two question survey that's sent via email, right? Having that face-to-face dialogue or that phone call or that Zoom video, just to meet with a customer and kind of ask some more of those probing questions is definitely key. I think that is just as important during the beginning and middle phases of the journey with the customer as it is, when you're coming up on renewal. So you may be looking at certain health indicators and want to also probe a bit deeper on some of those with customers. Hey, I've seen that you're expanding in your licenses. Tell me about how your company is utilizing those. Or conversely, you might have a customer that's decided to move away from a portion of your product. Tell me a bit more about why it is that you're leaving there, or what you weren't adopting or finding useful, so that we can learn and bring that back into the business. It also helps us from a churn management perspective, make sure that we are thinking about that and building that back into our way that we look at risk and mitigating risk with our customers.
All right. So many different avenues and strategies that we can employ to ensure that we're doing the right kind of measurement. So we are now I would say we're at the end of 2023 and we're embarking on 2024. And a lot has happened in the last couple of years, especially with, a global pandemic and all. What are some key things that you found, trends that you've maybe seen, just in your own business as well as with your clients' businesses, that you believe if you really want to focus on, dominating, navigating that CX space in such a positive way, that your brand has an exceptionally positive reputation, and you have so many brand advertisers and evangelists for your business? What are some key indicators that you believe organizations need to focus on as we go into 2024? Where do they need to be giving their attention to?
Yeah, I think that there's always a focus around personalization of an experience, right? And how you can help customers throughout their journey to better smooth areas that potentially create bumps for them. Can that happen through automation, chat GPT? Can that help it happen through other self-service capabilities that you can serve up to them? And I also think, probably goes without being said, but ensuring that expectations of customers are properly managed all throughout. I think making sure that you're always having dialogue with the customer's needs in mind, that you're addressing pain points, that and the more and more that you can address those pain points through self-service, automation, ways that they can just make sure that they are able to get a quick path to value is really key. That frictionless experience for customers.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, could you also share with us what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, obviously Teams we use day in and day out in our business to communicate with our customers, to communicate with our teams internally. But one other, I guess I would say, tool that we use heavily within the customer success management space is Gainsight. And that is a tool that allows us to bring so much knowledge and power into our organization. It allows our CSMs to know, what right move to make next in terms of how to engage both internally and externally with our customers. And it's becoming really more and more of a feeder of having a true customer 360 within our organization. So really that single pane of glass view, if you will, of what our customers are experiencing. And so, if I had to pick one tool, I guess I'd pick Gainsight because we're using it day in and day out, and it's been really paramount to our success.
Okay, and just to confirm the spelling of that, is that SIGHT or SIDE?
It's GAINSIGHT.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I heard the gain. I was just confirming the
Yeah,
E
yeah,
part.
yeah. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
of
you.
course.
All right. Could you also share with us maybe one or two books that you've read? It could be a book that you read a very long time ago, or even one that you've read recently that has had a great impact on you.
Yeah, one book that I did read, it's been a very long time ago, but it was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read that during my graduate school program, and despite that it's been around for ages, I think it really does a great job of cutting to the core of how you can set yourself up to best relate with others through the power of being able to build strong relationships and making sure that those relationships are built on like a mutual trust and credibility. So, I think that is always relevant no matter what role you're in is, how do you build relationships? How do you help drive influence? So yeah, that's just been a really meaningful book to me, I guess, throughout the course of my career. One other thing I was going to add, Unique, is that I listen to a number of different podcasts. I know perhaps different than books, but um, you know, one podcast that I really enjoy is Mel Robbins' podcast because I think she, teaches a lot of both professional and personal habits that you can apply to everyday life. How you can really make sure that you're leading a productive and happy lifestyle and that you have that good work-life balance. So if you haven't checked Mel Robbins out, her podcast is great.
Yeah, two two excellent recommendations, Michelle. I totally agree with you about Dale Carnegie's book. Book came out in 1933.
Mm-hmm.
Literally many many years ago, almost 100 years old. But the
Mm-hmm.
principles and concepts in that book are still relevant today. And I do listen to Mel's podcast, and I follow her on most of her social media platforms. Love her content.
Mm-hmm.
So excellent recommendations for our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we have a lot of listeners who are business owners and managers who feel they have great products and services, but sometimes they feel like they have constantly demotivated human capital. They lack the human capital that has that constant motivation. And, motivation is one of those behaviors or competencies that comes from within. You can encourage it, but you can't actually evoke it or make it happen. So if you are sitting across the table from that person, those business owners or managers today, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give them to have a successful business, having that consistent challenge that they're experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most important things for me in terms of motivation is always trying to understand from a customer perspective, what it is that they're trying to achieve. Because I think I get a lot of motivation out of helping others. And I think when you feel like you have a true understanding of the problems that you're trying to solve, what tools you have at your disposal, and you feel like you can harness that power to, find a way for those customers to excel and to drive outcomes in their business, that's extremely motivating to me. I think, you know, everybody, and perhaps new business owners or business owners, I really like the idea of kind of starting before you're ready. Everything has a beginning, right? And it's not going to be perfect, but I think the more and more you practice and the more and more you get into the rhythm, you find that you figure your way through, right? Everything is kind of figure outable. So I like the idea of kind of just starting things before maybe you feel like you've got it completely figured out and reframing things kind of as you work through them. So that's kind of how I work through times of adversity or new skill sets I need to kind of build rapidly. And that's worked well for me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. Could you also share with us, Mr. Michelle, what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Yeah, absolutely. We, back over the beginning of the summer, we had completed, we had a in-person leadership seminar that we had done as a leadership team, going through kind of the Clifton Strength Finders exercise. And I've done all sorts of DISC assessments and different things throughout the course of my career, but I really found that particular assessment very valuable. And for those of the listeners that might not be familiar, it's basically an online assessment you can take. It takes about 20, 30 minutes. And when you go through it, it ranks your top 5, top 10, and kind of your full, they call them all 34 of them, I think it is, strengths. And then you kind of understand, where you can lean into a bit more as a leader. And by sharing it with your peers, you can really get a sense of how other people, learn, how they like to communicate, how you give and receive feedback. And so I actually liked that so much within our leadership conversations. I've cascaded that down with my direct reports. And we've had some very, very good conversations about that. I think I've just uncovered ways of working with people that I wouldn't have necessarily known. And it also helps from a leadership perspective, and I think managing perspective, understand more the types of skills that people have, the types of things that are motivation factors for them, so that you can really make the most impact of your team. My top strength coming out of that was individualization, which basically is your ability to kind of take a survey across the landscape and understand which individuals kind of that are best suited for which areas, and how to best pull out the different strengths of people you work with. And so it was eye-opening, I think, to see some of the things I might have thought I would have scored higher on versus those that I perhaps have some developmental opportunities with. So if people haven't taken that, I would highly encourage it. I found it extremely valuable, and I know my team enjoyed the conversations that we had off the back of the exercise.
All right, perfect. Now, our listeners would have tapped into this episode, Michelle, and they would like to connect with you. Where can they find you online?
Well, you can find me via LinkedIn. So just, Michelle McCarthy on LinkedIn is a great place to find me. You can also check out our site at unifor.com. But I'm very active on LinkedIn, so would be happy for anyone to reach out to me directly coming off of this podcast.
Perfect. Now, before we wrap our episodes up, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to get you back on track. If for any reason you got derailed or you got off track, just reminding yourself about that quote will kind of help to get you back on track, help you to get more focused. Do you have one of those?
Yeah. I think one of the things from Mel Robbins, and it's not necessarily a quote, but she has the 5-second rule. And one of the things I have been trying to do whenever I feel like I'm getting off track, or maybe you start to go down a negative path, is just to say to yourself 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then launch yourself into doing what you next need to do. So that's from her book, 5-Second Rule, again, Mel Robbins. But I've really been trying to use that to break habits and get people use it to get themselves out of bed in the morning, right? Not from going down a negative path. So, the other one that I would say I really like, and it's from John Maxwell, is a leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And I think that's so powerful to remember. It's not just about kind of setting the vision, but it's also about walking the talk. So I'll leave you with that.
All right. Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. Now, Michelle, we just want to express our deepest gratitude to you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to kind of hop on this podcast and share with our audience, a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are today, why it is important to ensure that you're measuring for the right things as it relates to improving CX in your business, and of course, embracing customer centricity as a core value. And then looking at also, the frequency of how you do those measurements and what kind of things you really need to be targeting and focused on at different periods of your business to ensure that you're really delivering on the expectations of your customers, and of course aiming to exceed those expectations to create that long-lasting relationship. So your insights today, your knowledge today, all that you shared with us today, we are extremely grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Unique. Really appreciate you having me.
Just want to remind our listeners, you can follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX, and feel free to follow us on our private Facebook group at Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.